nobody leaves their childhood unscathed. Nobody does. Even if you had a Leave It to Beaver normal lifestyle, a childhood, even you come out with some sort of, baggage, emotional baggage that maybe you might not even be aware of if you have not done the emotional work to kind of work through some of that stuff. So the family mapping tool of this, again, called this Genogram, was super, super helpful and super insightful. And I'm going to be chewing over it. I'm going to be looking at it, because you kind of draw it out. It's like you literally map out your family. What's up, EQ gangsters? Great to see you all today. For those of y'all that are watching on YouTube, welcome. For those of y'all that are listening on the podcast, welcome. Thank you all so much for being a part of our journey, letting us be a part of your journey. Those of y'all that have shared stories, your emotional growth stories, how your emotional fitness programs are impacting your life in real, tangible ways. Thank you for sharing those stories. If you'd like to share your story, please reach out. Hit me up on social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Would love to hear your stories. You could also hit me up at Noble, N-O-B-L-E, at EQGangster.com. Noble, N-O-B-L-E, at EQGangster.com. Again, or the different social media platforms. For those of y'all that have shared episodes, that have rated, reviewed, subscribed, and shared, again, thank you so much. Absolutely means a lot. And that's a great way for those of you all that have gotten some value from our podcast or YouTube that can really add value back to us. So thank you so much for doing that. All right, so this episode, super stoked about, is about emotionally healthy. Well, so it's about being healthy emotionally, but a tool that I recently learned about, which I've never done before. Well, I did a version of it before, but I didn't know it's kind of what it was called. So it's a mapping tool, a family mapping exercise called a genogram. 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 A family genogram. I have never heard of that in my entire life, y'all. So it was news to me. Again, I had done a version of this, but I've never done this actual exercise before. We just finished doing this exercise in our membership. Boom, for those of y'all that are on YouTube, you can see it in my background, EQ Mafia. What? That's our membership group. We just went through this whole exercise that I learned from taking a one-day leadership course from Peter Geri Scazzero called the Emotional Healthy Discipleship One-Day Leadership Event by, again, Peter Geri Scazzero. Emotionally Healthy Discipleship. So that's where I learned about this. That was the exercise that I did with our membership group. Super valuable, super helpful. It's a great way to, again, map out your family, your immediate family, your parents. Well, so your immediate family, your parents, your siblings, your aunts and uncles, your grandparents as well. Super fascinating on a sheet of paper. You can probably even Google Genogram, and I bet you there'd be all kinds of formats and examples. So there's college courses about this stuff. And we just did, again, in Mafia, we just did a little kind of dipping our toe in the water. But it's a powerful exercise to find out what are the patterns that are in your family. Your extended family, your parents, your grandparents. What are those patterns? What are those themes, the trends that are in your family? And how do those themes and trends impact you? How have they impacted you? How do they impact you? What are some of the results and consequences of being a part of the family that you're a part of? And this particular exercise was not to look at all the positive stuff, but to actually look at the negative stuff. so many times we can kind of gloss over or underestimate the impact of some of the negative aspects of our families that we came from, even if they were loving and all that stuff. Again, like I've said in many episodes before on our podcast, YouTube channel, nobody leaves their childhood unscathed. Nobody does. Even if you had a Leave It to Beaver, normal lifestyle, a childhood, even you come out with some sort of, baggage, emotional baggage that maybe you might not even be aware of if you have not done the emotional work to kind of work through some of that stuff. So the family mapping tool of this, again, called this Genogram, was super, super helpful and super insightful. And I'm going to be chewing over it. I'm going to be looking at it, because you kind of draw it out. It's like you literally map out your family. And the other thing that's fascinating is when you do this exercise, if those of you all that want to choose to check it out, if you're part of the Mafia, all our training sessions and stuff and coaching sessions are all recorded. All our guest speakers are all recorded. So if you're part of the Mafia, you'll be able to go back through and watch that. If you're not, you can just Google probably Genogram and there'll probably be tons of content that comes up about this topic. When I went through this exercise with Pete and Geri Scazzero from Emotionally Healthy Discipleship, the perspective that they said to kind of, when you're doing this mapping and there's some descriptive things, you kind of describe and put some adjectives, 2 to 3 adjectives next to each family member in your family to kind of describe that particular family member, and then to also describe the marriages in your family. The angle and the perspective that they recommend and encourage is to do that part of that exercise with those adjectives specifically of describing your family members from the eyes of you when you were 8 to 12 years old. So from your childhood. So if you can go back, the 8-year-old self, and if you were to write 3 adjectives describing your family members, again, from that 8 to 12-year-old self, what would you say? Not today, but back as a child, how would you describe those family members? Fascinating experience. And that's, the majority of our emotional foundation happens during our childhood. And so that was super interesting. And then what were some of the trends that you noticed or observed when you're filling out this Genogram, this family map? What were some of the insights, the trends, the themes that you observed, maybe from generation to generation, or from one side of the family or the other side of the family? What were some of the trends? It's super fascinating exercise. And then this is another big one too. If you have not, here's my disclaimer, my caution. My disclaimer is, if you've never done emotional work before, if you've never done this exercise before, I would really encourage you to give yourself a lot of grace and a lot of patience, and pay attention to the emotions that come up in yourself while you are doing this exercise. For me, it was an intense exercise. Even though I've done 3 to 4 years of emotional work, it was still pretty intense for me. Some of the emotions that I described while I was going through that exercise, it was intense, to be honest with you. So just, again, give yourself a lot of grace, a lot of patience, and mentally, emotionally, even spiritually, prepare yourself to do this exercise so that, again, you don't go into it kind of blindly emotionally, and then all of a sudden, bam, you get hit with some emotions based on kind of doing this family mapping of generations, not expecting or realizing that you may flip over some rocks, so to speak, in your family that may be housing some emotions, some intense emotions that you were not aware of. So anyway, just keep that in mind. And then also, something to pay attention to when you're doing your Genogram is, what insights are you getting? Like I said before, earlier, what insights are you getting? And then also, not just the insights and the trends and the themes, but how Are you currently being impacted personally or professionally in your leadership and or behavior as a direct result of your family, of some of these insights and trends that you realized and came up with, some of these insights that you discovered from doing this genogram? Then the kind of last part of that homework is, what are some of the scripts and narratives? I give a whole list of the different areas in the mafia, but you can find them too. What are some of those scripts in different areas of your life that may not be serving you, that may not be healthy or productive emotionally in different major areas of your life? I'll just give you a handful. In the area of money, in the area of conflict, in the area of sex, in the area of relationships, in the area of grief and loss, in the area of expressing anger, in the area of feelings and emotions, family, attitudes towards others and other cultures, success. What are some scripts and some narratives, again, that may not be healthy, that you have kind of adopted or developed? Or how about faith, in the area of faith, that you have adopted from as a result of being in the family that you were raised up in? Lots of super helpful, meaningful, deep insights that you can uncover in your life today as a result of looking and reflecting on the family that you came from. Just wanted to share that really neat tool. Again, Genogram. I got it from the Emotionally Healthy Discipleship one-day leadership course from Pete and Geri Scazzero. Super interesting. And some of the points, here are a couple of the points. Who do you need to be okay with in order to be okay? Who do you need to be okay with in order to be okay? And that's kind of an identity question, right? What does the answer to that question tell you? What does the answer to that question tell you? Love is not just a physical closeness, but it's also an emotional connection. Our family of origin. So this is the other really powerful point around this genogram, family mapping exercise. Your family of origin sets up how we relate with the rest of the world for the rest of our lives. So that's another thing to look at. Again, I already mentioned about in relationships, in terms of relationships. How did your family of origin impact and affect how you do relationships, how you view relationships? So anyway, just wanted to share some of those things that hopefully can add value to you. Again, please share if this episode or other episodes really resonate and you feel like you'd want to share it with other folks. Please do so. Again, it'd really mean a lot if you would give a rating and review on our podcast, and just share maybe a takeaway, a lesson that you learned from one of the episodes or something, or maybe even put in the episode number that was really impactful when you do a rating and review. That would mean a lot. So thank you so much. Remember, emotionally healthy people help heal other people emotionally. Unaddressed emotional issues do not get better over time. They actually compound. If you don't deal with your emotional issues, your friends, family, colleagues, and coworkers will be forced to.